My goal today is to build scorecards using copy, templates, and rollups in QuickScore. I've already logged in and have landed at my home page. I'll start by selecting Scorecards. And then I'll select Mobile World. At the bottom is an org named Sales, which contains a number of different regions, with US broken down the most. If I expand that out, I'll see East Coast and West Coast. And if I expand East Coast, I'll see Northeast and Southeast. At the very bottom is an org named Sales Template. To build up the sales organization, this template was leveraged to create all the various regions so that they were all identical. To review this in more detail, I'll select Sales Template and within Scorecards, I'll review the structure in more detail. I'll see that there are two themes at the top level. Beneath that are measures, and in some cases there are submeasures. If I click on Product Sales Revenue and then select Edit and then scroll up, I'll see that this template org leveraged the concept of rollup at the measure level, so that when data is loaded at a level like Northeast, values automatically sum to the East Coast, then to the US, and then to the sales parent. I'll now select Done. Under Presentation, if I click on Dashboards, I see that there are 4 dashboards, and if I click on Charts and Reports, there are 2 reports that are tied to the Sales Template org. Up at the top, if I select Africa, and select Scorecards, I'll see the exact same structure with 2 themes, measures, and submeasures. The only thing different is the inclusion of Africa as the suffix. If I click on Dashboards, I'll see the 4 dashboards, and if I click on Charts and Reports, I'll see the 2 reports. All of these items came across automatically from the Sales Template org. With that as background, I'd like to create a new organization for Europe based on the Sales Template org. At the top, I'll start by selecting Sales Template. I'll then select Edit and see that I have 2 options to copy an org. The first option is Copy, which will copy the scorecard structure and all the presentation objects for that org. This option creates a completely distinct organization. Any future changes to the original org will not be reflected in the new org. Since that is what I want, I'll select Copy. I'll accept the default in the top left to just copy the top level. The alternative option is to copy the top level in all the descendant organizations, and since Sales Template does not have any, only the top left is applicable. Next, since I want the new organization to be directly beneath Sales, I'll select that in the middle. In the bottom right, I'll then select Copy and wait for that to propagate. Next, I'll click on the new org that was just created at the bottom, and I'll choose to rename that. so I can distinguish between the original. I'm going to call this Europe copy and click Rename. The second option is Copy as Template, which will again make a copy of the scorecard structure and presentation objects. However, unlike the copy option, any future changes to the original org will be reflected automatically in the new org, creating an ongoing connection between the two. A key thing to note with either option is that actual values, notes, owners, and updaters do not come over with the copy. So once again, I'll start with the sales template org, and this time I'll click Copy as Template. With this option, a key thing to note up at the top is a blue banner warning that any future changes to the org structure, scorecards, dashboards, and reports will affect the new org. Since I'm okay with that, I'll move on. I'll accept the top left option again to copy over the top level org. I'll then select Sales in the middle. And down in the bottom right, I'll select Next. With this option, I have the ability to add a prefix or suffix to the new org for its scorecards, dashboards, strategy maps, and reports. I'll start by changing the org name. I'll call this Europe Copy as Template. To be consistent with the other sales orgs, I'll provide a suffix, and I'll call this Europe in parentheses with the lead space there. And then I'll select Copy in the bottom right. I'll then select Done to get out of edit mode. And next, I'll look to test things out. I'll select Europe Copy and select Scorecards, and verify the scorecard structure looks as I would expect. If I expand things out, I'll see that I have two themes at the top, measures, and then submeasures. If I click on product revenue, product sales revenue, I'll see that the thresholds have come over, but the actual has not. I'll then select Dashboards and Charts and Reports and verify that those objects came across. I'll note that they are blank because I haven't yet loaded any European data. Next, I'll select up at the top Europe Copy as Template. Once again, I'll select Scorecards, verify that the structure looks correct with themes, measures, and submeasures. And once again, if I click on product sales revenue, thresholds have come across with no actual. On the left, I'll confirm that my dashboards have come across, along with my two reports. And once again, everything is blank because I haven't yet loaded any data. So I have two new structures, one that is living independently of the original template and one that is permanently tied to it. Next, I'll illustrate that any future changes made to the template will have no impact on the copy structure, but are carried across automatically to the template structure. Up at the top, I'll go back to Sales Template, select Scorecards, and I'll create a new scorecard item by selecting that option up at the top. I'll give it a name of discount card sales, accept the type of theme, and click Create. On the left now, I'll click on the new item. Once again, I'll click on New Scorecard Item. And I'm going to create a measure called Number of Cards Sold. And this time on the right, I'm going to switch that from theme to measure. Next, to have values roll up the tree, I'm going to scroll towards the series section. And I'm going to change the actual value to roll up and do the same thing for red flag and then for goal. I'll then address what should occur if there are missing values. I'll change each of these to treat missing values as blank. And this will help me to avoid having to populate entries for this new measure across the entire sales org in order to see a grand total. I'll then set the red flag to 100 and the goal to 200. Next, I'll move back to the measure details area and see that once I set at least one of the items at the bottom to roll up, a new option has appeared named Rollup Equation. Since this is a numerical measure, I'll leave the default of sum to have the number of cards summed as I work my way up the sales tree structure. To the left of that is aggregation type, which controls how values are handled when I switch from monthly to quarterly to yearly in the top right. I do want this to be summed, but one thing to note is that if I did change the aggregation type to average, the product automatically changes the roll-up to average. If that's not what I want, I could go back and change that to sum and just confirm that both have been switched back. At this point, I'm now ready to click Create in the bottom right and then select Done. The question now is, what is the impact of the change I just made with adding a new theme and a new measure to the sales template? Up at the top, if I switch to Europe Copyist template, I'll see that the new theme and new measure have automatically come across. However, if I switch to Europe Copy, the new theme and measure is absolutely nowhere to be found. So this is behaving exactly as I'd expect. The copy structure is completely independent of the structure that I made the copy from, while the Copyist template structure contains an ongoing link to the original structure. Getting back to the idea of rollup, I'll load some actual values for the new measure that I created to see the impact of that. Up at the top, I'll switch to Northeast underneath US. I'll then select the new measure, number of cards sold. I'll then click Update and load a value, maybe 300 for May, and then click Save. I'll then switch to Southeast. So again, click on the measure, click Update, and this time I'll give Southeast 200 for the actual and click Save. Okay, if I switch to the parent of those two areas, East Coast, and then select the measure. I'll see that even though I didn't load an actual value directly to the East Coast org, it is coming across. It is taking the value for Northeast, adding the value for Southeast, and providing a grand total of 500. If I hover over 500, it shows me that it is summing two measures. And if I click on that, I can actually see the math. 300 came from one area, Northeast, and 200 came from the other, Southeast. I'll click Close. Now I'm going to go all the way up to the sales level and select the measure. And I see once again I have a total number of 500 all the way up at the parent level. However, if I hover over it, I see that it is intending to sum up a number of different measures, not just Northeast and Southeast. Once values are loaded for areas like Northwest and Southwest, this number will continue to grow. The last thing I'd like to do is go back to Northeast, click on the measure, and change the period up in the top right to yearly by clicking on it and then selecting Show Results. Because I set the aggregation type to sum, it simply adds those Northeast values up to provide a total at the yearly level. Since I have only loaded one data point, the value would be the same as the monthly level for May, which in this case is 300. The next topic is expanding new organizations that were built via Copyist template. New structures are not locked into what the original template contains. New items can always be added after utilizing Copyist template. For instance, going back to sales, there is value of sales and number of sales which came across from the original template. Discount card sales also came over, which I just defined at the sales template level. But what is also here is sales pipeline, which was not part of the original template. It was something that was just wanted for the top level of sales, and so it was added just at that level. If I were to select any other area like Africa, I'd see that sales pipeline was not present at that level. Okay, the last item I'd like to determine is what happens if I need to edit anything that came from Copyist template. If I select Europe Copyist template, and then the number of cards sold measure, and then select Edit at the bottom, I'll see a note towards the top that the measure is based on a template and that only some of the settings can be overridden. If I select Measure Settings here, I can switch from Use Template to Override Template. And just as the note warned, some items can't be changed, like manual aggregation type or the roll-up options in the series section. However, I can change how missing values are treated. I can also change the red flag and goal, which would impact, in this case, just the Europe Copyist template org. If I go up to the theme level, there's an option called Advanced Options. From here, you can also choose from Use Template to Override Template. And I can alter the start and archiving dates.